phenomenal. It was like, wow, this is what I've been dreaming of all my life, you know.
Yeah.
No, it came to an end in 2021 because I was fired. I was fired from the band. I've always felt that there's something on this planet and the way we live our lives just doesn't add up, making you feel like you're inferior and that you shouldn't have your own opinion, that you shouldn't stand up and question. Life is about questioning.
Definitely.
You know, why does that do that? Even if you prove me wrong or I prove you, it doesn't matter. It's about learning. It's about education. So then to be turned around and said, well, unless you have it, you're sacked, you're fired. So it's like, well, fine, I'll be fired then, you know, because I'm not having that pumped into my body. The fact that people can't see the level of the PSYOP that you went back to, the military grade PSYOP, is astonishing.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Drake Michigan podcast. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been mentioning how the platform just keeps growing and growing, week upon week. Now, we suddenly find ourselves now with a bit of a celebrity, a bit of an icon. You've probably heard the name. And we are very, very fortunate because today we've managed to get onto the platform, Matt Hoy. So we want to welcome Matt. And what's even more special about this is we've got an upcoming festival in August, on the 19th and 20th of August. And Matt is actually headlining. Is it the Saturday
night? Yeah.
The Saturday night. So, I mean, if anybody out there has listened to Matt on YouTube or gone to any of his gigs and concerts, wow. I mean, you know, so we're going up the levels in terms of the people we're interviewing and speaking to. But what we want to do is we want to dive a little bit deeper as well as the music and talk about the music. But there's so much more to Matt. We've seen him a lot on Twitter and social media platforms and events. He's got a lot of knowledge to share about movements that are happening in this country and around the world. He's got an overall knowledge, what we want to dig into. Well, let's see if we can get into the spiritual side, see if there's anything happening there. And let's just dig into the actual person that is Matt, away from the fame and everything else, and just the everyday fella, Matt Hoy.
Who is Matt Hoy?
Welcome, Matt.
What a build-up. That's one of the best build-ups I've ever had in my life. That was fantastic. I thought there was somebody else going on for a second there.
Just wait for the festival. We're
really a big one.
We've got banners and flags waving.
I'm going to put the bunting up there, kid. That was fantastic.
What we're thinking at the festival, Matt, if we bring you in like... like Charles gets carried on one of them thrones.
What I was going to say, Tyson Fury, and they're like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I can see it happening. I envisaged it, to be fair with you, So the fact that you said it.
And you know what, Matt? Why not? Why shouldn't you?
Exactly. Why not?
Why not? Like
the world that we're in at the minute shocks me on a daily basis. So why not?
Listen, Matt, thanks so much for joining us and doing this podcast for us.
Pleasure.
Because we really are grateful, and it's great to start mixing and talking with these amazing people who are doing fantastic stuff. But before we get into the outside stuff, if we just go back into your life, so obviously a lot of people will know you from. Would you class it as the breakaway UB40 with Ali Campbell?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it was. In 2010, Ali left the original lineup.
Yeah.
Actually, he left the original lineup in 2009, and he had a guy in for a year. So, and then he left, and then I joined in 2010, and so then I was with. It was a weird situation how it started, because what happened was Ali went solo first. And nothing was really gaining any traction with the solo thing, so he was advised to get Astro back into the band, and within that then they could start using the UB40 brand again, which obviously is a better brand than Ali Campbell's name itself. So then it became UB40 featuring Ali Campbell, Astro and Mickey Virtue. So I was part of that fraction. Just not to confuse with the other UB40, because I was talking to Grant the other day, and he knows the grief I can possibly get.
Yeah. But the thing is, Matt, so was you already like an individual artist on your own before that? How do you even get into them circles where you get invited to be part of a group like that?
Because I'm a legend, mate.
Exactly.
No, only joking. No, I'll tell you how I started. I started off like many musicians from Birmingham, many singers, going to the rehearsal rooms, putting notices up on the board to join bands, looking for bands that needed singers, doing all that kind of stuff. I actually put a band together when I was 18, and it was called Joe Junk. We were trying to think of a name that would that was cool at the time. Don't you remember back in the 90s you used to have the jeans, the Joe Bloggs jeans?
Yeah.
So we had we thought of that, and then we thought the Spaghetti Junction, so we called it Joe Junk. So that was that. But the band had some amazing, when I look back at it now, some amazing musicians within it, because on drums we had Carl Brazil, who has now gone on to play for people like Ed Sheeran, Amy Winehouse. He's currently with Robbie Williams. He was with James Blunt. He's played with everybody, you know. The keyboard player Sean has played with Ollie Murs, and you know, the list is endless with these guys. They're just phenomenal, and we didn't realise how good we were when we were young. We were just jobbing musicians trying to get a deal and doing all the spit and sawdust pubs, you know, travelling up and down to London and Manchester and all that, you know. But I started off doing that, and then we built ourselves up to do showcases for record companies. And unfortunately, I got a deal with Sony. It wasn't unfortunate, I was fortunate, but unfortunately that they didn't want the rest of the band. They only wanted the songwriters. So that was me and the keyboard player. And then he left for other reasons and became a policeman. And then I went to London on my own and lived in London and started learning how to write songs and become a front man, as you would whatever call it. And just started writing for other people, you know what I mean, like minor stars, people up and coming that, you know, that got a talent but couldn't write, and all that kind of stuff.
So Matt, is that your main, like is that your main inspiration? Is like, are you a natural songwriter? Like, you know, I know you do it for other people, but is that you?
Do you know what? Songwriting is actually the one department I feel really insecure about, but it's the one department most people say I'm best at, which is ironic. I always feel like whatever song I write, it's fluke, you know. It's a real fluke. And am I going to be able to write another one as good? I panic, you know, and I only ever write to order. I'm not one of those who, you know, is walking through the park one day and all of a sudden the clouds part and I get inspiration. I'm not one of those. If I've got to write an album, I'll focus on I try and write down a list of subject matters that I want to try and cover, and that helps me to produce the songs that way. I'm not a free hand. I don't really enjoy the process of songwriting. I enjoy it when it's done and people listen to it and go, "Oh, I really like that. I like that bit of it." But it's a bit of a ball ache for me, songwriting. But you know,
what come first, the songwriting or the voice?
Oh no, the voice, the singing. Yeah, I just wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to be George Michael. You know.
Oh, what a great person to be! I
was in love, still am with George Michael. He was not just a musician; he's a wonderful human being as well. You know, the whole thing.
I mean, obviously, from an outsider, I don't know how close you was to, but obviously, as a fan and an outsider, he's like he was just fantastic, wasn't he? And a lot of his work went unnoticed as well. What he did away from music. So,
well, I think, I mean, he was one of my biggest inspirations initially with the voice, but then once you become a fan and you kind of research more as into what he actually did, because he was a songwriter and a producer and he played nearly all the instruments, and you know, he's multi-instrumentation, you know what I mean? He was just phenomenal.
He was awake as well, Matt.
Say it again?
He was pretty awake as well.
He was, which makes me, you know, there's a lot of these artists that have kind of disappeared.
They did
of the last 5 to 10 years, for you know, quite young for some reason. And when you look back at their histories and their interviews, there's kind of a common thread going between, or there's a common thread within the lyrics of their songs. You know, Prince is another one. You know,
Prince,
Even the likes of, for the younger generation, the DJ, was it Avicii? I mean, he was very awake and outspoken about certain things, and then
Avicii was awake, and he was also very responsible for the paedophile ring. He was about to expose a lot of that as well. So it's sad. It's really sad.
So growing up as a kid, obviously you always wanted to be like George Michael or famous. Do did you get pulled into the everyday stuff? You know, working in the local factory or you know, that kind of stuff, or college, or?
Of course I did. Of course I did. Well, from the age of 14, because growing up I was a single parent child with my mum. Lived on a council estate in Birmingham. Yeah, I mean, we were poor. Do you know what I mean? We lived in a flat in Birmingham in Bourneville. So at the age of 14, well, my first job was at the age of 10. I had a Saturday job in the butcher's, which I hated, absolutely hated. And then obviously the paper ends. And then at 14, I got cleaning jobs because my mum was a cleaner. So she managed to get me, and I was doing cleaning jobs for a few years. Well, quite a good few years, actually. And I used to wake up before school and get the bus into the city and clean, and then come home, put my uniform on, go to school. As soon as I finished school, I'd come home, do my own work, and then go into town again and do another office cleaning job. Yeah. Come out, and just the whole week would be the same, just to help out at home because my mum would do the same, you know.
Yeah.
And then when I was 17, still trying to get the band thing moving, I got a job at the post office parcel force, delivering parcels and all that kind of stuff. So, but that didn't last long because I was bloody awful. You know what I mean? The intentions were good, but I was awful. I was too fixed on music. You know, everything. I was just a daydreamer. Everything was about music. You know. So
that's good because you're creating your dreams there, aren't you? That's what when you're doing that, you're heading somewhere. You've got your intention to be that musician and to be on stage.
And also, Matt, I think a lot of people who inspirational people as well. Their background is very humbling. You know, growing up, they understand life and a bit of struggle and having to, you know, get a bit of dirt under your nails. And I think that sets you in a good stead in the future. You know,
I think, no, absolutely. I think I'm very appreciative of what I've had over the years and done. You know, I mean, got the experiences like getting to the point where I was with Ali and going on tour with Ali, because that was like another level again. Then it kind of moved to globally, because before it was all the UK. Do you know what I mean? I moved to London and I'd work out and work with British artists and stuff like that. But when I became a part of that band and we started, you know, we did gigs in like South America and Peru, Argentina, Hawaii, places like Suriname, French Guiana, Fiji, anywhere you can think of, the furthest, you know, Africa, Kenya. Anywhere. I've covered the world, you know what I mean? And to experience that,
you know, when you're going through that, Matt, because obviously, like anything, when things are really good in life, we think they're going to last forever, kind of thing. And especially when we're younger, you know, we think we're a little bit invincible, or we think, you know, this is going to last forever, or the money's going to last forever. But was it all like a bit of a whirlwind looking back? You know, and obviously because the name Ali Campbell, obviously he's international renown, you know, and some of his songs and all the rest of it. So when you were in all that, was it very much like, you know, the life of rock and roll and a whirlwind?
Yes and no, because I was in it for so long, because I was in it for 12 years.
Wow.
At the beginning, it was all a bit of a whoosh, because it literally was the pop star lifestyle, you know, even though I wasn't the star of the band, but I was in the band, and you get treated very similar. So you're in the cars, you're in the hotels, you fly in, you know, you got the security, you're whisked off, and all that kind of stuff. And it was phenomenal. It was like, wow, this is what I've been dreaming of all my life, you know.
Yeah.
But it does become a normal. Yeah, and it's a horrible thing to say, but it's like anything. The more you do it becomes, well, this is just how it is, you know. And now it's gone. Yes, I did take it for granted, because it was a day-to-day thing. You know, I used to be, you know, I'm up this morning, I've got the cars coming to pick me up, we're going down to Heathrow, we're flying to so-and-so, then we're staying there, and then we're flying to so-and-so. That was kind of my life. Now it's completely changed. But as I'm older and more experienced, I'm not really that bothered, because I've got other interests that are keeping me occupied now. So because I've done that now, that's kind of shelved and boxed. I don't need to experience that anymore. And if I'm brutally honest, I don't think I would want to do it again, because touring is one of the hardest jobs I have ever done in my life.
I believe.
You know, everybody thinks, oh, it's so glamorous. You know, it is from the outside, but it's one of the most, oh God,
I believe it's like eat, sleep, repeat, and it's just work, sleep, get up, do again, go again.
Well, it's like, doing shows on 2 hours sleep and making it look like you just woke up, you're fresh as just come out the spa. It's graft. It's hard graft. But it's worth it. It's an experience of a lifetime. But I don't think I would step back into it now. And it's definitely a younger man's game. You see a lot of these artists that are in their latter years still doing it. It's because they have to, because the music industry has changed so much.
Yeah.
Live music is where the money is now, so people have got to get out there and play live. But so I don't think I would do it again.
Did that sort of come to an end then? What, early 30s, that kind of period?
For me?
Yeah.
No, it came to an end in 2021 because I was fired. I was fired from the band.
Right. Okay. So so now I only know a little bit about this, because before we get to that, what I wanted to ask was, because obviously, when we hear about like footballers, they're a good example. So all of life, all they've ever known is they've chased the dream, played the football, and then suddenly you're still at a very young age, and then everything just comes to a stop.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, especially, it's a bit better now, but back in the day, they never learned anything else in life, any other life skills. So they were sort of just through on the waste skip.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, a bit like the music industry, I could imagine that being a bit similar. It's like, well, what am I going to do now?
It really is. It really is. And unless somebody kind of, and I never had it, but unless somebody kind of gives you the guidance that you need to put stuff away for a rainy day, and which I did. No, I'll take that back. That's I was 50-50 on that. I did. It was COVID that screwed me over. But yet it is. You're kind of out there living for the moment, and then when it does end, you kind of. The analogy I've said to most people, it was like standing on the edge of a cliff looking out to sea, and thinking to myself, well, what am I going to do now? Because I don't know how to do anything else. All my life, I've just been a musician and a singer on stage and been in bands and songwriting. The only other thing I could do was drive. So what, I'm going to be a taxi driver or something. I've got no life skills in any other kind of job,
It's a huge step into the unknown, isn't it?
I was a bit lost, I'll be completely honest, and it's the last 3 years I've kind of had to really, and suffering with mental health issues as well. It's been a real journey within to find myself again, and think, balls to this. I'm going on a different route.
Yeah, digging deep is hard, isn't it? And facing those shadows, it's a tough journey. That
it's like it's like finding another you. It's like being introduced to a new person within your own mind, because I didn't really know this, but I mean, I knew the person because when my mum passed, I was 25. So I was kind of on my own. I've been on my own since I was 25, looking after myself. And I think that's where I developed the mental health problems, because I had severe depression I went into at that point. And I didn't even realize it. It was only till the latter years that I realized I was suffering from depression. But this quite recently, I think that gave me the tools to deal with what I've dealt with over the last 3 years. And it is a reinvention, and it is, like I said, it is. All right, Matt, nice to meet you. This is the new you now. This is how we're going to move forward, and it's a completely different Matt to the last. Because with them guys,
people would have always had the conversation and treated you as if you're Matt Hoy, the singer, and that. Whereas now there's a whole new level and depth to you, what people are learning about, but also by the sound of it, but also you're learning the depth of you, and that whole other side of your character.
Most definitely. And I think, going back to the first point you made, there is a lot of people now are kind of recognizing me for being Matt Hoy and not Matt Hoy attached to that band. Which is nice, because for me, I feel the reason they're recognizing me is because of the work I've put in over the last 3 years to try and fight against what we're all fighting against, because it's not right. And the point you made at the beginning of the interview, in my life, I've always felt, I can never quite put my finger on it, but I've always felt that there's something on this planet and the way we live our lives just doesn't add up, all along. And I could never, and then the last 3 years, it was just like everybody, you'd all unravel. And I went, here we go, this is it.
Well, just so you know, Matt, if ever you thought, am I the only person in the world who feels like that? I can tell you now, no, you're not. There is a very select.
Well, I've discovered that
people. And you know what? You'll know yourself. So even as a kid, you would have had these little moments where you think, I've got something else to offer me. I'm different. There's something without sort of, saying I'm special, if you like, but there's just that little something that you feel that you've got.
Mum always used to say I was special.
Yeah, but back in Birmingham, it was a different type of special.
You're special, you are.
Yeah, quite right. But what can I just, what's the called, without going too deep into it, Matt, but just so people who are listening could understand. So, up until the point where obviously the pandemic hit the country and everything else.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously from the death of your mom, you would have started to, that would have been sort of a bit of an awakening for you.
Yeah.
Maybe started, obviously, because a lot of the times through depression, it's almost, that's an awakening in itself. It sort of triggers new ways of thinking in the brain and sends us in a completely different journey, which can be very frightening, but also afterwards very rewarding. And you start to realize, I'm so grateful that I had to go through this trauma to understand who I now am.
Yeah, there is that side of it. I've never been grateful for trauma, if I'm brutally honest.
Okay.
But I do understand the point you're trying to make, and I do, I get that. I think for me with the depression, I think because I didn't realize I was actually in a depression.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go, "Oh, you're depressed," and I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm all right, actually. I feel good. You don't realize the depression is like, having no inspiration, just sitting around the house all day, sitting there. To one point, this is what did it for me. I was sat there at one point, and I really needed to go to the toilet for a wee, right? And I couldn't be bothered. And it got to the point where I nearly wet myself. I literally had to walk out the door, up the stairs, up to the bathroom. I nearly wet myself because I just couldn't be asked. And that's when it all came to. I went to see a doctor. He said, that's depression. That's the key signs of depression. It's not about going, I feel sad today. It's everybody's different, and then you learn over time, like the point you've just made, the triggers. And I suppose that's the experience in learning about yourself. You learn the triggers of depression and where to go with it, what not to do. Don't do that. That'll trigger that. Stay out of that. Don't go down them roads with them conversations. You know what you like. So, I suppose this is an education into your own mental health.
The reason why I approached it from that angle, because what I wanted to do was, Matt, I wanted to ask, because obviously when obviously the COVID and the pandemic hit, and then obviously you've took your stance on that, was you always open to a different way of thinking, and that, or did you become more like that through the period of losing your mom and the depression? So, like, what I'm saying is, would the old Matt, the growing up when everything was great and touring and everything, still have took that stance, or was it because you've gone through things in your life which has now made you look at things from a different?
No, I've always been this way. Okay. Even when I was a young child, I would look at stuff and question it with my mum as well, because there was just certain things in life that just, didn't add up. I can't think of specifics, but like I'd ask a question, go, well, why are they doing it that way? That doesn't make sense, when it's quite easily, you could just do it like this. And she'd go, well, because that's the way it's done. And I'd be like, well, why though? It doesn't make, it'd be easy to just, but that's just the way they do it, son. And you have to, most people just think, oh, well, that's the way they do it, so they accept it. And I've always been like that, but obviously growing up, and I mean, I just think in some respects, COVID and the pandemic, it's like, it's the biggest reveal the world has ever known. It's completely backfired on whoever's put this together, the people up there, completely backfired. And in some respects, people like us have actually gained some salvation, I think, for want of a better word, because you think, fuck, I'm not mad after all, all this.
Well, to be fair, these days now, you could actually make some money selling your tinfoil hat instead of just wearing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like people are queuing up to buy one. But can I just bring you to because there would have been a certain day where all the conversations took place, where someone would have reached out to you and said, "Hey, Matt, you've got to go and have this, this, and this done." Or these conversations would have took place where you said, "Listen, I don't feel comfortable about this." Is that something you could share with us? Or
yeah, no, absolutely. It was right at the beginning of all of it, and I think it was because it all happened so quickly. It was like an onslaught. I actually questioned it myself, and I thought, is there a virus there? Is there something, you know? So at the very beginning, for the first week, it was a week. That was all.
Yeah.
I had the mask on, and do you remember when they said, you know, put a broom stave through your shirt so you keep 2 meters apart?
Yeah.
I went to Starbucks after about a week of it, and we walked in there, and everybody's masked up, you know what I mean? So we're in the queue, and we order our drinks, and we sit down, and my missus said to me, "Oh, you can take your mask off now." And I went, "Hey?" She said, "No, you can take your mask off now. She's sitting down." I went, "All right, okay." And so that for me, then right then I was like, right, okay. So anyway, we've had the coffee, and we've still got a bit of time to kill. So I said, "Do you fancy another coffee?" So she said, "Yeah, go on, why not?" So I've stood up to go and order another one. She said, "Babe, you need to put your mask back on." And I went, "Why?" She said, "Because you're going to the counter, you need to put your..."
This chat goes a little bit dark, a little bit dingy, and a little bit globalist for this channel. So if you wanna watch the rest of this, and believe me, it's worthwhile, please head over to Rumble right now. The link is in the description below.